Parashat Yitro, Rabotai, Parashat Yitro, the big drama. Parashat Yitro, we could maybe even present it as an existential drama that's going on here. Men versus the voice of God, of course. Men stand in front of God. Parashat Yitro is not just the parasha of Matan Torah, but it's a cosmic moment when a person is finally, or humans are finally exposed to a truth that is greater than us. And while in it, actually revealed really who he is. According to Kabbalah, Matan Torah is not just an historical event, but rather a continuous process that keeps on going and happening of a revelation of the light of the Ein Sof, the light of God, the eternal light within the very fragile human vessels that we are. How is it possible that the light of God will dwell inside of us and we are so fragile as people? And that's a very tricky business to do. Matan Torah, the giving of the Torah, is a moment when person stands in front of the meaning itself. Not an idea, not some kind of virtue, not a social law, but rather a complete demand. Anytime, Avner, a complete demand that you can escape. A complete demand that you can escape. This is the classical existential moment. You know, where the person, humans, mankind, is stand completely naked in front of the you, right? That you in terms of God, that we cannot actually could withstand. We cannot really hold. This is a moment when a person, the human, when I say a person, I mean mankind, giving up the illusion, or is willing to give up the illusion that he knows. And he's really agrees to be present in the moment in the most truthful way possible. That's the Nasa V'Nishma, yeah. This is the moment, right, that when we say, the Pasuk tells us, Ve'ha'am ro'im et hakolot, and the people see the voices. Of course, there is a lot of beautiful explanation about what does exactly mean, Kabbalistically and so on, but let's not get into this now. Let's look at the contradiction that there is with that. And that contradiction is very deliberate. That contradiction of the people see the voices is deliberate, right? Because voices you don't see. But this is exactly the issue. That's exactly the point here. This is an experience that comes out of the category of what we used to, the usual stuff that we used to, of experience of our awareness. It's something beyond our awareness, as what Kierkegaard said, and I'll tell you later on who is. He calls this the being petrified, not fear of something, but being completely petrified from a complete tremble from the endless thing. I mean, maybe you could get this idea if you ever went to a deep ocean, and I really mean deep ocean. You guys in New York don't really have the chance to do that. But I remember as a young lad, I used to go with my friends, we used to go swimming in the ocean. And we used to swim so far that we barely, actually the shoreline we couldn't see because of the curvature of the earth. We couldn't see the shoreline, just see the building far further than that. And the water is very cold, and when you just dive in, you don't see anything, and it's petrifying. And then we used to swim back. But this fear of this endless thing, the things that have no boundaries, is a constant tremble that mankind face, and of course, when they face God, there was a big thing. The tremble came from the fact that life is not so haphazard, but rather life is demanding, life is obligating. The divine voice is not heard from the outside only, but it was heard also from the inside, from inside of us. And there was a petrifying moment that you hear God's voice inside of you and outside. And that is, to knock down any kind of ignorant people who say, oh, they were on drugs or they were this. No, there was an experience beyond any experience that never seen before in the history of humanity that might come again. And that experience of complete divine revelation, according to the prophet, will happen again. It's going to happen again when all the nations will go into a war on Jerusalem. And then at that moment, God would say, well, enough is enough. And He will come down and reveal Himself on the mountain. It would stand on top of Mount Olives, and Mount Olives is going to split into two. Until this point, everybody's going to try to deny God, but there's going to be a revelation. You better prepare for this. You better be prepared for this. And I'll tell you, as much as you'll be prepared, you're not going to be prepared, but you better stop preparing. This moment is going to come. Look at the prophet. It tells us, we read this all the time. It's Zechariah, that's right. Zechariah. Very good.
Earthquake.
Very good. Now earthquake. No earthquake.
Drugs, you know?
What?
They might think that they're on.
No. So now, when the Zohar says, that's what the Zohar is hinting. It says, Kol shofar, the voice of the shofar, and this is applied to us also in Rosh Hashanah. That's the voice of your neshama. That's your internal voice. Kol shofar, the Zohar says, the hint is the voice of your neshama. Now, and it says, and how is it? Holech v'chazek. So if, for example, you blow a trumpet, eventually you'll lose air, then the voice is going to go down. Here it was a miracle. It was a miracle that the voice actually become louder and louder and louder and louder the more the sound will. And again, it's not because God is like, pumping up the volume over there, like, putting up the ultra bass and so on and so forth, but rather because a person becomes more willing to hear. The voice of God is clear to you when you are willing to hear. If you are not experiencing God in your life, if you have a problem with the where is God and so on and so forth, it doesn't mean that God is not there. It means that you are not willing to listen. The problem is with you. You are not willing to listen. So when you're willing to listen, the silent voice of God will be all over. As they say, the sound of silence. By the way, I like Disturbed better than Simon and Garfunkel in the voice of silence. Sometimes I had an idea. I said, "Man, I'll take this guy Disturbed up, make him a chazan and call him Israel, and let instead of doing just the regular stuff, I'll make him sing the sound of silence. It's like get the people going. I don't know. You know this? You don't know this? Okay, you will listen to it now. And this is what happened there in Har Sinai is an internal movement. It's like an internal process that was going. The more the ego goes down, decreases, the more your ability to listen exists. It's either ego or listening to God. It cannot be both. It cannot be both. And then, of course, the fear comes and says, "Vayomru," and then they says, "Listen, Moshe, you talk to him, you speak, you talk. We can't. We are afraid because we're afraid we're going to die. If God is going to continue, we're going to die. We can't exist anymore." And this is a very human moment. That it's so human, it's painful. It's very painful. It's a tremendous painful moment because it shows a certain paradox inside of all of us. In one hand, we are desiring the truth. We want the truth. But we are always trying to avoid a direct contact with the truth. We're always trying to avoid a direct contact with the truth. The existential philosophy recognized this moment very, very well. And that is the moment when you meet the meaning, the absolute meaning. And that meeting with your absolute meaning you might feel that it's actually threatening your own existence. And that's why usually when there is this mega miracle, usually people rebel against that. Every time there was a mega revelation of God or a great miracle, people feel so uncomfortable, and in order to deal with it, they had to revolt against God, whether it was during the time of the flood, and then after that the Tower of Babel, whether it was Matan Torah and the golden calf, It was this fear that we're going to lose our identity. It's very easy. It's much easier to negotiate, to compromise, to put things in a frame, right? And that's, by the way, something that we always do. We don't like to deal with people the way they are. We always like to put people in a frame. Excuse me, where'd you go to school? You went there? Okay, so I know where to put you in a frame. What are you? Sephardi, Ashkenazi? Okay, I'm going to put you in a frame.
So hard not to do it.
And it's hard because you're weak. Only weak people do that. We have a problem with looking at a person for who he is as he is. We always try to put people in a frame. And many times we try to put ourselves in a frame. And that really denies the chance for us to become really who we are. We always have to play a role in some kind of a imaginary movie that we're playing. And here comes the first breakage in the parasha, in this week's portion, when it says pen namut, we're afraid we're going to die. We're afraid we're going to die. Here the death is not just physical death. It is, as I said to you, the fear from losing your identity. If the voice is true, in other words, if God is real, therefore who am I? Therefore who am I? What would be left of me? People are afraid because if God is real, I cannot do what I want. So the easiest thing to do is to say what? God doesn't exist. That's the easiest thing to do. So Levin's would have said, this is the moment in which the I, reveals or find out that I'm not the master. I'm not the master of the world. You think that you could do whatever you want and there's not going to be any kind of ramification for your actions. When you're going to realize that there is a ramification for your actions, you're going to pay for it, or you have to give a report for someone, you already have a problem. So the easiest thing to do is to say, you know what, I don't believe in God. And then you come up with a stupid question, can God create a stone in which you cannot live? Oh, please, not that again. Not that again, right? When a person realizes that he's called upon responsibility that was there before he had a choice. The responsibility to do the right thing existed before you made your choice. When you're going to realize that, a person said, listen, okay, let's try to get some kind of a mediator, right? And let's take, Moshe, you speak to us. Judaism does not like mediators. Judaism doesn't like the fact that I need somebody, a channel to speak to. Christianity made a whole business out of that. And that's why many of the sages during the time of when Chassidut started were absolutely against that. You want to talk to God, talk to God. Why you have to talk to God through a Rebbe?
But through Moshe Rabbeinu was all the time.
So that was different. That's what God told him to speak to the people. But listen, excuse me. Not you'll be the channel in which it's too great for us. By the way, the Rambam writes this is how idol worship even started. When they realized God is so great, so therefore let me talk to his messenger. It's too great for me to. God said, well, what are you doing there? Talk to me. Why are you talking to the sun and the moon? Right? So when they say speak to us, this is a very deep existential point. It's not running from the truth, but rather an effort to try to survive the truth. The truth is so powerful that we feel, which we are wrong, but we feel that we're not going to be able to make it. So let's take somebody else who will be a buffer zone for us, and we'll talk to him. This is the passage from the me and you to the me and him. And that is a very important point to understand, I think, right? At that point, God became a law. We took God, and Chazal tells us that it would have been enough for us to understand the whole entire Torah, no questions asked, just like Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov did. The fact that they said, Hashem said to us, I am God who took you out of Egypt, that would have been enough. We would have understand everything. At that moment, there was nothing else to say. When God realized that we are not able to do so, okay, Moshe, so let me give you the whole entire list. in a way, we took God and we made him into a law, we made him into a text, we made it into a system, then in which something we could live with, and we're not going to fall apart. Now there is a, thank you. Now there is a religion. Now there are laws, and we can live with the laws. We can argue with the laws. We can break the laws, or we can choose to keep the laws. But we don't have to deal with God itself. That's why a person can only deal with God himself when he separates from the body and he goes up to the heavens. Only then. We had this choice, but we missed this choice. So it was a great moment that we missed kind of the opportunity for that. And then Moshe comes and says, guys, relax. Take it easy, tranquilo. Al tirau, don't be afraid. God came to try you out. Now, what does it mean, try you out? This is, again, a very key existential verse here. To try us out, or to try, it's not means it's going to give you a test. Are you going to pass the test? How much do you know? Where does it say this, that? That's not what it means. But rather, it's a test of survival. If us as humans, as Jews, are we willing to live with the idea, with the realization that there is meaning, even if I don't have control over it? And today in the morning we had a whole discussion about, when can I stop learning Torah, and so on and so forth, and so on and so forth, and blah, 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 the whole entire thing. If you know that there is a meaning, even if you don't understand it, you have to stick to it. And that's where it comes to a level of emunah, that's where you believe, and this is when God becomes real to you. And I'm going to tell you this, and I know you're not going to like it, but I don't care. Every time you're doing Bitul Torah, you're basically saying, I don't believe in God. You like it, you don't like it. If you don't like it, there's Glenn Leave It 15 here. You can actually have it and enjoy it. But that's the bottom line. That's the bottom line. Now, when we are talking about freedom here, the freedom that we are talking about, I know I'm going a little fast because I want to make it for the time, and because I want to expand it more, but due to the great children here and the parking in the snow. So the freedom that we are talking about here is not a liberal freedom of doing what I want, do what you want. That's not what the freedom in which we are talking about, but rather almost like a tragic freedom of the freedom to respond, to be willing to respond. As I said to you before, Kierkegaard, which his name was Søren Ubi Kierkegaard, was a Danish philosopher, who was considered to be one of the fathers of existential philosophy, existential psychology as well. He would have said this is the moment of the leap. That's the moment in which you need to jump. And in other words, there are no proofs here. There are no proofs. There's no security. There is only a calling. Only a calling of, what is it, dip? Ribby, is that dip? Cool. So this is the moment in which man was called upon. There's the calling of man, and man is demanded to choose. And that's a choice that we all make every single day. Are you going to respond to that calling? Are you going to respond to the calling? That God is the King of the universe. Are you going to live in His world according to you? That's a choice you make every single day. And excuse me. That's why I said to you before. This is when, according to the Zohar, the event of Mount Sinai exists every single day. Are you going to do the Naaseh V'Nishma every single day or not? Because if we would have not done Naaseh V'Nishma, we would not get into Torah. Every single day you make the choice of accepting the Torah, because there is a heavenly bat call that comes out from Har Sinai every single day. It says, "Oh, Ilo lebarim shebevim asher azvu ta Torah." Oh my goodness, what am I going to do with those buddies of mine that left the Torah to the side, that threw it away?
It comes from Har Sinai or from heaven?
Chorev. Michorev. Kol yom yotzet dal kol michorev. Chorev is Har Sinai. Now, so the Ten Commandments here are not just are not put together as some kind of like virtues or principles that have been put together, some abstract ideas, but rather as a direct calling for men. Lo tirtzach, lo tignov, lo tinaf. Don't do that. Why is that? Because these define to us boundaries, or these statements define boundaries to us, that because mankind is a very fragile, is very passionate, very dangerous, and yet could become very responsible. You need to make the choice. Yeah, and you need to understand, that when you make so-called the wrong decisions to violate the mitzvot, you are becoming vulnerable. Your strength comes from keeping the mitzvot, not from violating them. When you are surrendered to your uncontrolled desires, you're becoming vulnerable. As they say in plain language, expect a hitting. Expect a bang. תצפה לפגיעה. It's your choice. Nobody's forcing it. It's your choice. You know that there are going to be consequences to the matter here, right? And this is a kind of a musar that does not just come from let's say pure common sense, but rather from the recognition that the person stands in front of me. That thing stands in front of me as a commandment, as a demand that I cannot refuse. And God stands me as he is, and not something that I could cancel. It's not something that I can cancel. I need to deal with the totality of God by choosing to live in His world. At the end, Parshat Yitro comes to offer us a tremendous, difficult truth, but yet it's a freeing truth. The meaning is not comforting. Meaning in your life is not necessarily comforting. It's not a new age idea of lighting candles, putting some incense, spraying patchouli in all kind of places that should not be sprayed, and calling about mindfulness and meditation. That's not the case. Sometimes you get meaning from very, very hard work. Meaning in your life you get from hard work. I mean, if you want to know what meaning is, go become a farmer, go become a cowboy, go become a rancher. Get up before dawn in the cold, this and that, and that's going to be the meaning of or helping out, or like the people in Zaka, they go in and pick up pieces of bodies when there's some suicide bomber. It's a very difficult truth, but it's meaningful. It's very hard to deal with. The fact that we always look for the easy way out, that we're looking for the Arubas and to the Bahamas and all the other things, is basically trying to escape an effort for meaning. We don't want meaning. We want lollipops. But lollipops give you cavities. So, that moment in Parashat Yitro is a moment of radical freedom, complete radical freedom. Don't throw everything behind and then throw yourself at God. Being an observant person is not a prison. It's ultimate freedom. It's radical freedom. Kam Yetziat Mitzrayim is already behind them. Physical slavery has finished. And here is the truth that, as I told you many times, as Eric Form would say, it says, man is afraid of freedom no less than he's afraid of imprisonment and slavery. You're afraid of that just as much. Eric Form, in the book, which I would recommend to all of you to read, which is The Fear of Freedom, he claims that freedom is not an easy gift, but rather it is a burden. Freedom, as they say, is not free. You need to work for it, you need to maintain it, you need to fight for it, and it's not easy. But then you're free. It demands responsibility from you, that most people don't want to be responsible. It demands true identity from us, that we have a hard time really being who we are. It demands from us to have a choice, and many times we don't want to have a choice. And if we'll take, on the other hand, you'll take Viktor Frankl, right? From the human experience, Frankl would teach us that the question is not what I want out of life. That's what most people say. What do I want out of life? But rather, what does life demand of me? What does life demand of me? And that's a very deep question. You hear that, David? Good. And this kind of description is almost so precise into the experience of Har Sinai. It's not what life demands for me, what God wants for me. And this is why I would rather read Mesilat Yesharim every single day on Tanya. I'll tell you why. Yes, Lubavitch says you don't like it. Okay, well, what can I tell you? Too bad. Because Mesilat Yesharim is all about how do I interact in God's world, where the Tanya is more of like how God interacts in this world. Mesilat Yesharim is the book to go. The Torah does not explain to the world, right? Let me do this to you, and this is why it happened, this is what you do, and so on and so forth. But it goes straight into the person. And the fear of the people, or we say spend namut, for we'll die, gets a totally different meaning. Because man is not just afraid of death, but most of the people are afraid of life that would demand meaning from them. Because then when you know what gives you meaning in your life, that's your truth and you can't avoid it. And it is so mind-boggling to me that people would rather live life without meaning than actually face the truth and live it. Which is unbelievable. Because, as I said to you, finding a meaning is not always comfortable. You can. It's not a matter of consuming. It's like you can do. You can sell it. You can buy it, right? Meaning requires you to be able to have a stand, and in order to have a stand, you need to have a backbone. You need to have a backbone. You got to be able to stand against all the people who make fun of you. That's why the Shulchan Aruch starts with the thing, right? A person needs to be able to stand against all the people who make fun of him. That's before you start with any other mitzvah. You have to be developed. In other words, you have to have a backbone. If you don't have a backbone, you're no more than a silverfish. You're like no more than a human cockroach. Let's put it this way. You need to have a backbone. So, a person is always free to choose his position. He's also free to choose his circumstances. You put yourself in circumstances. Don't blame anybody else for that. And in Sinai, Bnei Israel can already choose, right? Right? You think so? No. Because God came and talked to them. He said, it's not Moshe now. You could say, well, maybe, I don't know, maybe Moshe was at LSD, so therefore, I don't know, he made it up. It was an experience of the whole, and there's no such thing, no equal to that in human history, that any religion, that a whole entire nation had a divine revelation. Most religions, one person had a divine revelation. God came to me, this angel came to me, blah, blah, blah. Here, God talked to a whole entire nation. If I'm going to tell you, for example, hey guys, I saw a spaceship. I say, Rabbi, feel okay? If, let's say, Eitan and I will come to you and say, hey guys, we saw a spaceship. We saw a spaceship. I said, guys, what are you doing? You're drinking something too much? But imagine now, the whole entire Manhattan. Where's Mandani over there? How you doing? Right? The whole entire Manhattan sees a spaceship. Could you deny it? You can't. God revealed himself so nobody could deny it. There's nothing to match it in human history. So Bnei Israel, in a way, don't have a choice. The fact that the Midrash tells us, Kafalem har kigigit, he took a mountain and put it over the heads. He didn't lift the mountain and put it, he didn't need to. The just revelation of God itself was like there's a rock over your head.
It's an exaggeration.
It's a parallel, it's not exaggeration, it's a parallel for you to understand. God revealed himself in such a way that you can't deny it. You can't deny it. So, the only thing you could do is to either run away, rebel, or so completely submit to it, or respond to it with their responsibility. And Bnei Yisrael responded with their responsibility, being responsible. And they said, nah, we'll do it. We'll do it. Just whatever you say, we'll do. Don't say it, but whatever you say, we'll do. And this is the moment that Bnei Yisrael realized that freedom from Egypt is not the end of the story, but are at the beginning of a very difficult journey. And we are on this journey as well. We are on this journey as well. And that's why if you now remember the Haggadah of Pesach, Bechol dor vador, every single day a person needs to see himself Keilu Hu Yatsa Mitzrayim. You are continuing the journey on finding a meaning and bringing this meaning, and hopefully you'll bring it to this world as well, to Klal, to overall humanity. And that's already a different ball game, Rabotai. That's a different ball game. And what's so difficult about it? Because once you start assume the responsibility, you don't have anyone to blame anymore. That's it. You understand it's your responsibility. Nobody to blame anymore. And there is a voice and there is a choice whether we're going to respond to it, we're going to answer this calling or not. And then they say, Daber ata imanu. In other words, there is a mechanism that we says taking the responsibility to an authority. And that's what we do today. We give up our freedom by taking the responsibility and we give it to the authority. Let the government deal with that. Let the politician deal with that. Somebody comes and does anti-Semitism in your thing, let the police take care of it. The police is not going to take care of it. It's not there, it's your job. There's something that bothers you, your job, not the government job. The same thing when it goes, you want to have a living, you want to make money, go to work. Don't get something from the government. Because the government will do something very simple to you. They'll give you, and they'll give you most of the time things that you don't need. Until you're going to lose your skills to actually provide and make the stuff yourself. Whether it's Indians, Native Americans in America that they gave them at the beginning in the trade, the natives here made their own tools. But then they start trading with them to the point that they lost the ability to make their own tools. And then the government said what to them? It's okay, you don't need to go hunting. I'll give you the food. And then the government says, you know what? No more your land, it's my land. You want to be dependent on the government? You're a fool. Go make your own money. Provide your own go get a job, go work, go do your own thing. You don't need to make a lot of money. You need to make money to put enough bread on the table. But you know it's yours. And I told you this a million times. That's my father, Alav Shalom, used to say. He said, go to work hard. Even if you make a penny, it's your penny. Nobody will take it away from you. Better that you make your own penny than you get $100 from somebody else. Hard work never killed anyone. But I'm going to tell you this. Handouts do, and do all the time. Stay away from handouts. You can't get parking, don't get the crazy parking, illegal parking, things. Go park the car far, go walk. That's what they do in Israel. They park, they walk, right? In Israel, don't get used to shortcuts. Shortcuts is poison for you. Learn to commit yourself. And that will help you, your relationship with your family, with your workplace, with God, and with yourself. So, there is what they said. You talk to us, right? It's not a matter of rebellion. We don't want to hear God. It's not a rebellion, but rather they felt that they need some kind of a psychological need to defend themselves from the wave of anxiety they came together with freedom. So they created this defense mechanism. So they created, the laws, whether it's the law, whether it's the going between, whether it's the leader, right? We all want a leader. We all want Mashiach. You know why you want Mashiach? Because you don't want to do the work. Guess what? He's not coming like this. Like that, it's not coming. You don't want Mashiach to come. You don't want Messiah to come for the glory of God. That God's light will be shining on all the nations and the world will be in prosperity. You want the Mashiach to come because you're lazy, because you don't want to do what you need to do, because you're free. When the Pasuk tells us, in that day I removed the yoke of Egypt from your necks, and therefore no nation can oppress you anymore. The question is, how in the world are we being oppressed for so many years, says the Ibn Ezra. The yoke of Egypt was removed by God. The problem is we keep putting it on our necks. We invite everybody to, can you please put the yoke on my neck? Can you please oppress me? There's no difference, by the way, if that's an individual person or a country. When you're dependent on somebody else to give you weapons to defend yourself, they're going to say, listen, wait, not so fast. Well, not loud. Now it's going to be on my terms. I'm going to tell you who you could defend yourself against or not. Same thing when it applies to you. Stop looking for handouts. But all these things is like trying to take the concept of freedom and turn it into something that is more bearable. But the Torah does not allow you to run away from it. The voice really comes through Moshe, but the responsibility stays here. The responsibility for us to do what God asked us to do does not go away because Moshe spoke to us. Everybody hears the don't kill. Everybody hears the don't steal. And it's not as a societal principle, but rather is a personal demand from God to each and every one of us. Lo tirtzach, you. He should say, Lo tirtzechu, you should not kill in plural. But God speaks to us in singular, to each and every one of us. And this commandment, when God tells us to do something, it's not that He gave the Jewish people those commandments. He gave it to each and every one of us individually every single day. Right? And this is exactly where you could distinguish between freedom from, right, slavery, oppression, or freedom to. I'm free from this, or I'm free to what? To be a moral person, to be a loving person, to be a committed person, and so on and so forth. Har Sinai is the mountain of Sinai is a mountain of choice, not a mountain where should I believe or should not believe. That's wrong. But do we agree? Would we take upon ourselves to be people who are willing to carry the burden? Are we becoming people who are willing to commit? And that's what my idea was behind when I made this yeshiva. The first principle that I try very hard and not always being successful, unfortunately, is to install the people that commitment. People are not willing to be committed. You don't understand that, your kids will suffer. But commitment is it's a must in each and every one of us. A person that is alive not because of certainty, but rather because of loyalty to the voice that he was heard one time, that still echoes inside in each and every one of us, that is a person that can make it. You could call this person a believing person. He doesn't live because of this certainty that, oh, God promised me this or God promised me that. No, because God asked me and that's what I'm doing. I'm not doing what I'm doing because God promised me that Mashiach is going to come. And what happens if it doesn't come in my time? I'm doing what I'm doing because God asked me to do it. Because the greatest fear for you should be not to hear the voice. The biggest fear that you should have is not to hear the voice. Is to live life without a Kadosh Baruch Hu in it. When God is not a partner in your life. The greatest fear is to live in a world that there's no voice at all. Nothing. No voice of God is echoed in the world today. Comes Parshat Yitro and really invites us to ask, are we living in the desert, right? That is quiet enough to hear the voice. You guys probably never been to the desert. It really is the sound of silence. The silence is deafening sometimes. And that's what God took us to the desert. To take away all the extra voices and noises around. And in a way, as the Midrash says, the midbariyot, right? The deserts of today are the Bet Medrash. In the Bet Medrash, when you're coming to learn, You should quiet down all the external voices of your telephones and your this and your fears and your anxieties. Just put them out. That's the desert. But what happens if you bring those machines into the Bet Midrash? You can't hear God. Needless to say, it's Torah. You gotta understand this. Yes, I'm telling you that. Again, you might not like it, but that's the truth. Somebody's got to tell you that. Somebody's got to tell you that. So, and the Torah, then, are you willing to believe, right? Are you willing to believe that Torah was given not only then, but given to me here? And every single moment that I'm truthfully willing to listen to what God says? And that's what I said to you today. The Midrash tells us, Chazal tells us, every time a grandfather has his grandson on his lap, hearing him saying Divrei Torah, it is as if he received Torah at that moment. Right now he's in Har Sinai. Because you see your effort. And that's a gift that God gives you. That your effort was not in vain. To show you. Are you willing to live life with fear, but not to run away? It's okay to be afraid, but it's not okay to run away. Are you willing to create, again, enough quiet in your life to actually hear God's talking to you? Without going to all the discos and all these places that would create this static noise that you cannot hear anything. You completely become deaf to anything spiritual. Because at the end of it, Har Sinai is not behind us. Har Sinai is the place in which we are standing, only if we would agree to stand in it. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God does not dismantle or dismisses man. He turns to him directly. He does not force meaning on you. He gives meaning to you as a demand. He doesn't force it to you, but demands it from you. Live life with meaning. And you need to ask yourself, at any moment, and whatever that you do, what gives meaning to your life? And if you said, I don't have any meaning in your life, I will tell you, stop and start finding what gives you meaning in your life. And for that matter, Matan Torah is maybe the most anti-totalitarian act ever to exist. There's no dismissal of the I, right? God did not ask us to dismantle ourselves, but rather He called upon us to become mature. He demands each and every one of us to be mature. It's not a moment of disappearing from the truth, but rather being able to bear the truth and deal with it. And you'll see that today, the more people would lie to you, the more people will go after you. I mean, you run after them. As I forgot who said it, I think Goering said it, whatever it is, one of those Nazis in Machshimah. He said, the bigger the lie, the easier the mess to persuade the messes in it. Look around you. Look around you. And this is the moment when a person is also in being called upon and invited to real mature love. Love that is not dependency. Love that is giving. But true love is really of willing to commit. If you are not able to commit, you cannot love anyone, including your wife and including your kids. And how do you practice? By trying to be committed to God. God is the easiest thing in the world to have a relationship with, to be committed to. If you cannot commit yourself to God and His ways, don't think for a second that you could love anyone, because love means commitment. This is the moment when life itself will ask a person, and you cannot really escape the answer. You cannot escape the answer. Because Har Sinai is not telling us who we are. Har Sinai asks us, who do you choose to be now when there is a meaning? Who do you choose to be? And I think that we should also only choose good. Don't be afraid from the truth. My father, again, alav shalom, said to me all the time, always say the truth. Always. And you should know that because you'll say the truth, you're going to have a lot of people that are not going to like you. but nobody is ever going to blame you that you didn't say the truth. So, Rabotai, demand this from yourself. Face it. Put meaning in your life. Seek for the truth. Invite God into your world. Come and join us to learn every single day. Put your phones to the side. Make a deal with yourself. In the morning when you get up, half an hour after you wake up, don't touch your phone. Change your lives. Because you don't know if there's going to be a tomorrow. Nobody guarantees you that. But you have to have a meaning in your life. Shabbat Shalom.